again, I think this comes from a level of entitlement, because a lot of millennials feel like, well, I should just be able to get that job. I should be able to just go buy that house. And a lot of it is because we live in a world of instant gratification, where it's like, well, if I want to go buy a blank, I can, because credit. I can go get a $5,000 limit credit card and go buy all the dumb shit that I want right now. You don't have to save for it. You don't have to build up. So then it comes to something really big that you can't buy on credit, like a house, which, again, my age being 30, a lot of people my age, that's on their minds. Then it comes to more because I talk about how we just bought our house. And it's just, again, this idea that you can get a credit card and buy, even a car. I mean, you can, I remember a kind of, a moment in my life when I got my first car, and it was like, that was it. Like, I didn't get a cosigner. I was, young. I think I was in my early 20s. Had like $500 down. Like, didn't put down fucking anything, relatively. And just, guy sat at a computer and clacked away for about an hour, and then told me to sign this, and here's your car. And I was like, that's it? Is that easy? And so I think it's the ability to get stuff is much more apparent in this generation because credit's become such a kind of superfluous thing. You can always get credit for like anything. My wife and I we had sleeping problems, wanted to get a new mattress because the one I had sucked. So what we do is let's go for broke. Let's go get a Sleep Number bed. Cool, awesome. $4,000 later in one in-store credit purchase, we got it. Like, it literally, we left that day and bought it that day. It should end, I think our parents and grandparents, the idea of spending, $3,000 would, basically would equate to $3,000-$4,000, which would equate to, basically the entire month's income for a household. Like that, it would have required, months and months and months of savings, because you wouldn't be able to just go get it on credit. And now I think so financially, which is important because, again, the concept of burnout really applies to jobs and money. You don't have to plan anymore. You don't have to think about anything anymore. It just happens. And so a millennial sitting in a dead-end job, which there are tons of them in this generation, maybe more so than there ever have been, because employers don't care about retention anymore because there's so many people. Jobs requirements are getting, functionally getting much lower, while on paper getting much higher. That's, you need a bachelor's degree and blah, 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 to ostensibly work what is the modern day factory job. The difference being is that now there's so many people that really work that factory job, because most jobs have reduced their workforce while the population has gone up, that, it's basically you abuse your employees, and then they burn out, and then you toss them out and get a new one. Where factory jobs, I think in our parents' and grandparents' generation, ended up being careers because, once you got the guy that knew how to put the widgets on the Who's It, after a while he became the fastest widget Who's It there was, and it was worth it to retain him. Because you needed, there was, a dozen different positions in this factory. And so you were always in need for people, right? And now that's not the case. Now there's dozens and dozens of people and only a handful of jobs. Especially decent jobs. So the companies aren't really required to attempt to retain them. They go up to, in my company's the same way. Our hourly starting rate doesn't go any higher. I don't really have room to give an employee a raise because we start high, but if they want a raise, they've basically got to move up in position, and that requires open availability and this and that, and and if they quit, fuck them, we have more. I don't personally like it, but it's, it is what it is. And it's a kind of, I think a lot of the world has embraced this revolving door mechanic of the job market. And I think this is genuinely where the idea of burnout comes from. But again, it's because, you know, you could say that, but, you know, the worst jobs we have around today are still way better than the worst jobs, you know, maybe 50 years ago. And so I think, you know, I'll use my company as an example of kind of what I'm talking about, planning and the lack thereof, is that I have employees who, you know, I want to move up into management. I want to get a raise and make more money and take on more responsibility. Okay, well, I'll give them, you know, 3-4 things that these need to be improved, and then we can talk. And that's it. And the conversation's over. Never mind. I need open availability. I need you to be able to come in, you know, at pretty much any time except overnight. And maybe occasionally overnight. Oh, well, my kids have, you know, school and this and that, and I'm like, well, and that's just it. It's no. That's it. There's no other options. Because the idea of sitting down and making a plan on going, okay, that's the requirements. Let me see what I can do. You know, give me 6 months to align things up and, you know, change this or that or the other, and then we can pursue that. It's just an immediate, like, oh, I can't have it right now. Oh, okay. And then this job sucks. I don't have any future here. It's like, well, have you stopped and actually embraced the idea of making a plan? You've not? Well, then yeah, I can imagine it probably does feel like it sucks. And I think that really kind of underscores the whole thing of, you know, kind of what I'm trying to say about this article and just the generational thing in general, is that burnout is there because you have the ability to do so. Your life is relatively comfortable enough for you to actually stop and sit back and go, man, I wish it could be better, rather than just realizing that I gotta keep grinding or it all falls apart. Like, you don't have the ability to stop. You just have to go. I think that, coupled with an entitlement that doesn't produce people who want to make a plan for self-improvement and don't want to actually, you know, take the time to better themselves and improve their situations, leads to kind of a lot of the stereotypes that we have now. Because do millennials, you know, did we get a bad situation? Yeah, I think so. I think we inherited a world that has, you know, very little future from the outside. But if you look, you can find it. I have a college degree that I pretty much don't use because I took it on a whim because everybody told me I should. And, you know, I pursued it for about 6 or 7 years, realizing that it was a dead-end career, that I never was going to get anywhere with it because it's, you know, I wasn't in the top 1%. The top 1% were the only ones that actually get there. And I think that was actually another kind of gold moment for me, was kind of this realization that, no, I'm not good enough to make this work. And accepting that. And I think a lot of young people nowadays don't do that because they're force-fed this idea that you can do anything. No, you can't. Very few people can do anything. You're not going to be the president. You're not going to be the next rock star, the next great artist, the next great this, the next great that. They're the great ones because they are very few and very far between. But what you can do is make the best out of the situation you were given. Always look for an improvement and always have a plan for improvement. If you are feeling burnout, do something about it. That's the biggest thing, is, you know, you feel burnout because you're not happy with your situation, which is fair, but you're also not doing anything to change your situation. You're sitting back waiting for the situation to change around you while you just get ever more unhappy. And that is going to lead to, you know, this concept of burnout. And I guess the takeaway from all this is that burnout is under your control. I feel the same way about this as I do about, you know, things like unhappiness and depression. While there is clinical depression, which is, you know, a kind of chemical imbalance that causes a lot of different feelings in the person, I think there's also kind of this more generalized depression that a lot of people feel. That's not a chemical thing. That's not something that needs to be treated medically. It's just, you know, a lack of will to make the change. So it's, you know, if you're a millennial and you're feeling burned out, realize that it's because you're not doing everything you can be. And I think that's part of where the negative feelings come from, is because there is this overall, idea that in the back of your head, you know you could be doing better. You know that there's an option, and you're not taking it. So I think there's a little bit of self-loathing in there, but I think millennials in general don't like to embrace that concept. They'd rather kind of just either do nothing or blame the world around them and then say, oh, I'm burned out, rather than sit down and come up with a plan that'll actually help them improve their situation.